I love summoning Necromancer. It has really strong single target damage, and can survive content that's a higher level than you, since your minions tank most of the damage. Ability wise, the core of the minion build is the skills Summon Skeleton and Summon Golem. Using Summon Skeleton will first summon Skeleton Warriors, then Skeleton Mages, and then when your army is fully summoned, casting it will buff and heal your minions for 5 seconds. The bar above the spell is the buff duration. These icons right of the Essence Globe show how many skeletons you have alive. If the number is green, it means you have the maximum amount, and if it's gray, it means that you do not. The Golem ability will taunt enemies if you chose the Bone Golem, or deal AoE damage if you chose the Blood or Iron Golem. The Iron Golem also stuns. Most of the other abilities are mainly personal preference. In my third spell slot, I use Corpse Tendril. This groups up all the mobs nicely, stuns them, and makes them vulnerable, making enemies receive 20% more damage. In my fourth spell slot, I have Blood Mist. Later in the game, I was needing a defensive ability to get me out of sticky situations. Some monsters and bosses aren't tauntable, and getting stunned can lead to dying, so having immunity that can help you escape helps a lot. My left click spell slot is my ultimate ability, Army of the Dead. This summons all of my skeletons if they are dead, creates corpses, and deals random AoE damage. I'm not currently using a basic attack, so it was hard to find an ability for my left click that didn't interfere with my movement, and I think this is the best choice. My right click spell slot is Decrepify. Decrepify curses enemies by slowing them and decreases the damage they do. When enemies affected by Decrepify get hit, they have a chance to be stunned, and also have a chance to reduce your cooldowns. The cooldown reduction makes it so later in the game, I can use my Golem's ability and Corpse Tendrils over and over again. Sometimes my ultimate is off cooldown by the time it even finishes. I can often use my Blood Mist repeatedly during big packs, so I'm immune most of the time. I would definitely recommend getting Decrepify. When I start a fight, I first curse the enemies, then send my Golem in and use my ultimate. If I'm feeling like I won't die, I'll use Blood Mist into the enemies while waiting for corpses to spawn. Then I'll use Corpse Tendrils to group up the enemies and spam my abilities as they come up. Standing by your minions grants them 30% damage. Most of the time, you'll want to stand by either your Skeleton Mages, if not your entire army. In danger situations, you'll want to stand as far back as possible, preferably behind a wall. All of the spells I use can be cast through walls. Although you can't see the enemies, you can see the red outlines of the corpses as well as the blue outlines of your minions. Make sure your minions are healing and they will take care of the rest. Here are the minions I use. For the melee skeletons, I use Reapers and spec into making corpses. Corpses are essential for healing your minions and resummoning them when they die. It also helps you use other spells that require corpses, and generating corpses gives you Fortify. I think the utility of the corpse generation is better than any other option. For skeleton mages, I am currently using Frost Mages. However, before you're geared, I think Bone Mages are best. When spec'd into damage, they do about double the damage of any other skeleton mage. The problem with Bone Mages is that when they get too much attack speed, they die faster than you can heal them. So unless Blizzard patches something, I don't think these are viable later in the game. However, use them while you can, because skeleton mages do most of your damage. For golems, I would recommend using either the Bone Golem spec'd into making corpses, or the Iron Golem for damage. The Bone Golem's taunt is great at getting mobs grouped up and focused on the front line. Right now I'm having a ton of fun with the Iron Golem because I can keep spamming its ability to permastun and deal good AoE damage. For the skill tree, you'll want to get all the passives that boost your minion damage. Basically any icon that is blue you'll want, except for the ones that require you to sacrifice your minion. Make sure to eventually get Necrotic Carapace so you get fortified. These are the offensive and defensive stats you'll want on your gear. These are the legendaries I'm wearing right now. I'll show them pretty quick, so pause the video if you want to read them. Get legendaries that either buff your minions or help you survive. My rings grant me critical strike chance, and that's okay because 30% of your core stats get transferred to your minions. Luckily for summoning Necromancers, you can beat the game with little to no gear. When I beat the story, I only had 8% summoning damage, and a legendary that let me summon more skeleton mages. For Paragon, you'll want to go straight up as fast as you can. Slot the rare glyph Mage on the way up to buff your skeleton mages. Once you get to the board attachment gate node, select Cult Leader and rust the node to get a 45% damage increase. Then go for the minion damage nodes while glyphing Dead Razor. After getting the minion damage and resistance nodes nearby, I plan on getting skeleton mage damage and maybe going to the golem board. Early game, skeletons do a measly 2 damage, so you may want to start the game with some different spells. However, if you want to keep the minion fantasy, go with Decompose and Blight. You'll also want to grab Corpse Explosion since your minions don't deal AoE damage. That's it. I hope you have a fun time playing Summoning Necromancer.